Okay, so let's dive right into this. We're going to talk about meltdowns and shutdowns, what they are, why they happen, and really what they tell us about the brain's operating system. And we're going to start by clearing up a really common, and I mean really important point of confusion. Look, a lot of people, and they might have the best intentions, use these terms like they're the same thing, but they are worlds apart. Seriously, they're driven by completely different neurological processes. One is a behavior, a choice to get something. And the other is the system just breaking down. No choice involved at all.
And getting this distinction right is absolutely crucial. A tantrum has a goal, right? It's an external behavior with a purpose. A meltdown, on the other hand, is what happens when the inside gets so overwhelmed it just spills out. It's a reaction, a complete and totally involuntary loss of control. It's not a choice.
Okay, so if it's not a tantrum, what exactly is going on here? The body's response to this kind of overload can look pretty different depending on the person. So let's get a little more precise and define the two main ways this shows up: meltdowns and shutdowns. Think of a meltdown kind of like a computer's processor overheating. The fan just goes into complete overdrive. The whole system is overloaded and it crashes outward. It's this intense, external expression of being overwhelmed. And it's often loud and very visible because the brain's ability to regulate itself, its internal cooling system, is just completely exhausted.
Now, a shutdown is the exact same system overload, but the crash happens internally. It's an implosion instead of an explosion. The person might seem dazed, maybe sleepy, or just totally non-responsive. They're still completely overwhelmed, but their entire system's response is to withdraw from everything.
So, how does the person's nervous system get pushed to this breaking point in the first place? The why behind this overload often starts with how the world is experienced, moment by moment, on a purely sensory level.
And this is not an exaggeration. It's not a choice. It is a genuine neurological stress response. The brain is perceiving the environment, the sounds, the lights, the social stuff, as a constant threat, which keeps the nervous system on high alert 24/7. And this is the key. That constant fight or flight state gets triggered by something called sensory hyperreactivity. We're talking about everyday sensations that a neurotypical brain might just filter out without a second thought. But for a hyperreactive nervous system, those same sensations are perceived as an overwhelming threat.
And just look at how pervasive this is. We're not just talking about loud noises. It can be the tag on a shirt, the flicker of a fluorescent light, the combined smells of a cafeteria. Any one of these things can be the input that pushes the entire system one step closer to overload.
All right, let's peel back one final layer here. Why does this hyperreactivity even happen? Well, it goes back to some really foundational differences in how the brain processes information from the world and then plans how to actually interact with it. At its very core is something called sensory integration. You can think of it like the brain's air traffic controller for all the information coming in from our senses. It's got to take in all that data, make sense of it, and then use it to guide our actions. For a lot of autistic people, that air traffic controller is working with a much, much more complex map. This difficulty often boils down to two key skill areas. First, there's sensory perception. That's not just feeling something, but being able to figure out what it is and what it means. And second, praxis, which is a fancy word for the ability to plan and then carry out a new physical action. When these basic skills are a constant struggle, the world can feel incredibly unpredictable. This is such a critical point. It's not a preference, it's not a choice, it's a processing challenge. The sensory data is coming in, but the brain has a hard time organizing it and creating a coherent plan of action in response. There's even a specific term for a common pattern of this. It's called somatodyspraxia. And what it does is it specifically links the challenges in processing touch with the challenges in motor planning. It really highlights that direct connection between interpreting a sensation and then guiding the body. So let's make this real. Think about something like drawing a picture. For many of us, you just do it. But for a brain dealing with somatodyspraxia, it's this incredibly complex task. You have to interpret the feel of the crayon, plan the movement of your hand, and sequence every single stroke. It's the same thing with riding a bike. It's not just one skill, it's a whole symphony of sensory integration and motor planning happening at once. So when these foundational skills don't come automatically, the amount of mental energy it takes just to get through a normal day is immense. And that That is what leads to system overload.
So when we put all these pieces together, the hyperreactive nervous system, the challenges with sensory perception and praxis, what's the big picture here? How should we really be thinking about all of this?
It really all comes down to this simple but incredibly profound shift in perspective. The underlying neurological framework is just different. The brain's operating system processes the world differently. It's not a faulty system, it's just a different one.
There's this beautiful analogy that captures this feeling perfectly. It's from the children's book Stella Luna. You have this little fruit bat who struggles her whole life because she's being asked to live in a world that was built for birds. The struggle doesn't come from some flaw in being a bat, it comes from the mismatch between her nature and her environment.
And that really leaves us with this final question, doesn't it? Understanding the neurology behind meltdowns and shutdowns, it isn't just an academic exercise. It's a call for empathy. It's a call for accommodation. It's about recognizing that when a system is constantly overloaded, maybe the solution isn't to try and fix the system, but to change the world around it and build a few more nests for bats.